Hello, friends.
Hello. We are back with episode 29. And
Got it.
Yeah. By the time this comes out, my bad. It'll be February 4th, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that we wanted to talk about Black History Month. So we have a special guest and
You
dear
skipped
friend.
over so much.
Did I?
Yeah.
I did.
I love
My name
you,
is
Shivani.
Yes.
I'm
and this is Far
Miranda.
From-
That's Shivani. We're Far From Normal, episode 29, like she said, and we have a special guest.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So, hello, everyone. My name is Doniven Bush. I am a sophomore political communication studies major and an African American studies minor at Illinois State University.
Yay! We decided to invite Doniven to talk about Black History Month, really, and just kind of talk about everything that's gone down, deconstruct arguments, and just kind of get your opinion and experiences on things. We wanted to keep this as like an open discussion, so maybe not all the things that me or Miranda say will reflect our personal opinions, but solely just to get a feel for like what's going on and to discuss things that we don't understand. But yeah.
And
so
feel free to reach out if you. Sorry, you weren't done. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
We're back on Zoom, so it's a little chaotic. Feel free to reach out if to our email if you want to discuss anything afterward. There you go. Go ahead.
Got it. So the last time we met, you were talking about how you put together an organization right after I think was it in June? I think right after the all the protests went down. Do you want to talk about how you organized that and how it came about?
Yes. So the organization that that is almost official now. We just sent it to the, I guess, student activities. I'm 100% sure what the specific area is called, but we just sent our sponsorship from the School of Communication over. And yeah, we'll be first. Just get this out the way. We will be official hopefully next week. But the organization I have created is called the Black Communication Association, and it will be the home. It will not only just be a home for Black students within Illinois State University School of Comm, but it will be the home of critical discussions, debates, and just like much needed conversations on Black issues inside and outside our community.
Got it. That sounds so cool.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. So like, do you guys like have any like do you guys aim to discuss certain things like within like just the Black community, or do you like involve everyone? Is it open to everyone?
It's most definitely open to everyone. Although it being a Black centered group, that doesn't mean that other other ethnicities are not allowed to join. Anyone can join the organization because everyone needs to hear these arguments and to hear these conversations and to have an understanding of why certain issues, why certain ideas and thoughts and actions affect us either in a positive or a negative way. So anyone can join. Most definitely anybody can join.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Miranda, would you like to go? I can.
So did you guys start because of the George Floyd incident, or were you like thinking about it prior to it? How did you guys come to be?
Everything that happened summer 2020 definitely spurred me on to want to do something about it more so than march on the streets. Not saying that protesting is a bad thing. Like we should protest, but I felt that after the summer's passed, that I had to have had something tangible, some sort of long-lasting action, and so some sort of long-lasting solution to help make Black students at ISU and outside of ISU in the Bloomington Normal area, and hopefully even farther than that, feel like they had a space to where they can express themselves, to where they can express their problems and what the country is doing to them and what we're doing to each other, positively or negatively, and how we can actually solve it. So I created BCA as a solution, not just because I wanted there to be more than just marching on the street and then that's it. I would always say it's like Marching, like the marching on the street is amazing. The songs, the art, all the art that's been created, everything we do to push forward black equity and equality and equity for Black people is amazing. But when it's like protest, like having it be protesting or songs and whatnot, that's just the attention getter. Like that's the attention getter of that's the attention getter of us of like if we think of it like a speech, walking says like protest not walking, protesting on the streets is just the attention getter, and we shouldn't end with the attention getter. We still have a lot of body you still have a lot of the body paragraphs to take care of before we can actually get to the conclusion that we want. So yeah, but an expected speech puns, speech analogy.
I love
Uh,
it. I love the metaphors. So
yeah,
good.
a speech analogy to all of this, but it definitely adds a perspective. Just like we shouldn't just end with protests, we should end with true equality and equity for all people of African descent.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So like you're talking about like the body paragraphs. What is that to you? What does that consist of? Like, does it consist of like an education, like reform? Does it consist of like discussion? Yeah, I really agree with like the whole like protest being like the attention getter, because I feel like once people like join the protest, they're like, all right, my work here is done. I supported them, but then they don't
True.
follow up with that, and they don't like educate themselves. And yeah, how do you think we should move forward with this?
For one, everyone should have the initiative to want to destroy this systemic reach that white supremacy has. They should want to end white supremacy once and for all. And that's not just like I said, not just from protesting, but like you said, it can be education, it can be from just like going to discussions, like any of our discussions if we have any. Going to those. It can be just getting connected with groups and just like spreading it towards your own homes. If you're not of African descent and you know that there are biases within your own your own family, within your own home, amongst people who identify as Black or who are of African descent, then you should address that immediately, because it all starts in the home. A lot of these people we saw on Capitol Hill with the Confederate flags and whatnot, and the far right white supremacists we saw just destroy and just provide a completely unsafe environment inside of our own nation's capital. They didn't just woke up and just thought, you know what, I want to be a racist today. I just want to be a racist. No, that was years, months, years of just molding from their own family, from their own parents, their parents' views, just finding a permanent spot inside of their own psyche to the point where it's just normal. You should want and those body paragraphs are basically whatever you can do to make sure that it's not more. It's just not a norm anymore. Like it's like what Angela Davis said. In a racist society, it's not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. That's where like the education comes in. That's where the books and everything comes in that you want to read. That's it. That comes where you take the classes from your Black professors teaching you about these theories and these ideas, giving a much needed Black lens or Afrocentric lens to a multitude of things. It's from your own initiative. It's from your own initiative to help the group, to help the Black community. You shouldn't be doing this stuff. You shouldn't be virtual signaling, for example. You shouldn't just be doing something just to like satisfy yourself. You should be wanting to help the Black community out. So your actions should be to make sure that our lives are safer and more equitable than they were before.
That's a really good like segue into what I was actually gonna ask. How would you like say for people who do not identify as Black that they can support, help? Like, what's the best form, I guess, of allyship?
I would, yeah, I named them all previously, but also just to remember to not take over the movement. And you see this through multiple avenues. You see this through you can say this through movies with the white savior tropes you see in multiple movies,
Mm.
where instead and where it's the white person who saves the day, and that everything is all over with. Like it's the white person just takes over the movement and just takes it as their own. That should not be a thing at all. You shouldn't want to take over the movement. You should want to help them. You should want to help us as much as you can, but understand that this is still our movement too. You want to help. You should want to help out as much as possible. But you shouldn't want to just step in front of. You should want to step in front of us in the sense that you don't, the sense that you forget that this is a black movement. Like you shouldn't want us like you realize this is a black movement, right? You shouldn't want us thinking that sort of way where we think that you're just hijacking the movement for your own personal gain. So it's being so you should be very selfless with your actions with this as well. You should want to educate yourself, take the initiative to make yourself a better person and have a better understanding of race issues. But at the same time, you shouldn't use everything, all your knowledge to hijack a movement. And to although your actions might hopefully be that of good intention, it can also lead to you oppressing us in a way that you wouldn't even expect it.
Got it. It kind of leads into like another question Miranda and I were thinking about. I think a while ago we were approached by a organization that was promoting like the Black Lives Matter, just the hashtag and just putting it on different products. And they reached out to us and asked us to be like brand ambassadors. And so I did a little research into it, and they were allegedly like not Black owned. They were organized by people who didn't identify as Black. Do you think that takes away from like the message, or just like, as you said, like hijacks the movement in any way? Do you see any harm in someone doing that?
There definitely can be a lot of harm in doing that, especially when the money, like when you look up the brands, like you look up like why they have this, or instead of like it's like to help out, like let's say for example you want to help out like want to free like political prisoners or something like that. You want to help free people who are wrongly incarcerated and whatnot. To help help get bail money for protesters, for example. They're putting bail on such very high rates for Black Lives Matter protesters, when it's like when you're giving very small sentences to people who insurrected Capitol Hill. So money definitely helps out a lot. And it's not just, and I can tell it's not just with that company either. You can see a lot of big name products. You see, well, the NFL, ironically, you see like even Pokemon, like it's like sharing posts that's like, let's say like Black Lives Matter, like we are with you, we're here to support you, but their intentions aren't. But you can tell that as them being multi-million-dollar conglomerates, their intentions are probably not for the best. It comes to like you being able to identify, as you did the research, which is very commendable of you, by being able to identify like, are they for us? Are they actually for us? Or are they just doing this to like attract a certain dollar? Like we know the black dollar is powerful. It's very powerful. We spend lots and lots of money. And by them wanting to put like maybe a black face or like this black or like a black idea or like Black Lives Matter on their product, they know they're going to attract some people, because either black people want to show that, well, their lives matter per se, or even people of other ethnicities and other like sexual orientations and other spiritual orientations, among many other things, want to show their solidarity. So they want to buy that product. Of course, they want to buy the Black Lives Matter product, even though they don't know it's white owned, because they want to be able to support. They want to show them like, we support you. In reality, they just gave like maybe $2, $3, $4, $5 to a company that's not going to do anything with the money that will help out the Black Lives Matter movement, or rather, they're just going to like keep the money into themselves and just make some more and more money off of the hard money of people who actually legitimately think that they're doing something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying, like if I'm starting to confuse or anything, let me know.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like that sort of like information gets lost in a lot of like when we do research and like what companies and like what their intentions are, it's really hard to tell. And I feel like a lot of people get misguided by like what they're trying to do here. So another, do you go ahead?
I want to just like ask a follow-up question. Would you like argue with people who say that like, because there's people who say all like, you know, all media is good media, like even when like white companies or companies that do things to like make consumers like their product even though they're only doing it for money. Like, would you say white people saying posting things about Black Lives Matter, it does get like attention and stuff? Would you say that the people who say that it's worth the attention, even though they're a bad company, are mistaken? I feel like I did not explain that well.
Oh yeah, could you elaborate that a little further?
Shivani, could you explain what I'm trying to say? Because we talked about this earlier.
We did talk about it earlier, so I'm also not very good at articulating things, so we will do our best. But I think what she was trying to say was that so even if companies are showing their solidarity and selling products that are promoting Black Lives Matter, do you think that is doing more harm than good? Because there's an argument saying that even though it's not necessarily promoted by the Black community, it's still getting the message out there. So is it technically like bad? Is it harmful? Like, how would you respond to that? Is that what you were saying, Miranda?
Yeah, thank you.
That's actually a very good question. That's a very good question. In a way, you can't. In a way, I'm not saying I don't see the benefit at all of it. Like, I don't see the benefit of like getting like Black Lives Matter. Like, letting people know, like, hey, Black Lives Matter. They do, and our company supports that. So here, we're gonna put a Black Lives Matter emblem on like our cup or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So like there is good with that, because like they're showing like their solidarity to a movement. Well, just as you did, but that like what you just did, you researched and you saw that like, well, they're not doing anything to help out the Black community with this money. They're not giving it to any Black organization or anything like that, or any grassroots organization to help make Black lives easier to live. So it's good. So yeah, it's in, I guess, good intention, but if you see that like they're not doing anything to actually help us out with the money by having this product up, or they're giving, or they're like doing the exact opposite. They're giving their money, but they're giving their money to an organization that's proven time and time again that Black lives are just monetary. They're not actual human lives. They're just people. They're just things that can give them money, that can help support them. Or like a company that just straight up just disagrees with it. Disagrees with the sentiment that Black Lives Matter. That's when the real damage happens. That's when a lot of the real damage happens, and when it becomes more so of a facade. So it's just being able to figure out what company is legitimate and what company is putting up a facade to seem as legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Kind of going on a similar
direction.
Thank you. I know there's one of the bigger arguments is that the Black Lives Matter organization as a whole is, this is based off research, but it's too politicized, and that they are doing it for a liberal agenda, and that's how they I don't know. I've done a little research on how the Twitter hashtags, hashtag Black Lives Matter kind of made a spike during election time. How do I word this?
I feel like the way I perceive it, the question that you're thinking of is do politicians take advantage of the movement to get votes?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Is that
yeah. I mean, I guess.
Go with?
No, go ahead. I mean, okay, let me start over again. Do you? I'm sorry. I'm kind of nervous.
You're good.
Whew. Okay. Do you think the Black Lives Matter organization is too politicized? Do you think that how they're trying to get the message across to the mass is so do you think the way that they're trying to give people that message is more for like Black votes versus like human rights? Do you think they focus more on like votes? Like, do you think there's any elements of truth in that?
So if I get it correctly, what you're asking is that do I think that politicians use the phrase Black Lives Matter as a means to get votes instead of actually helping people out, actually helping the movement out, out, or helping Black people be in a social in the same social, political, and economic standing as a wealthy white man on top. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I'll try and explain later if I can get my words right.
I would actually take that a step further. I believe every election cycle, not just Black Lives Matter, but just Black people, period. They try to coerce Black people, period, to voting for them. This isn't just a Republican thing. This isn't just a Trump thing where you're seeing Trump just like where Trump just say like, I hope that the Black community this and that, like Black unemployment, like the Platinum Plan, for example, that's like only 2 pages. I've read some of the Platinum Plan. It's only 2 pages, and a lot of it's not very detailed in my opinion, in the sense that it just feels like empty promises on paper is what it feels like.
Got it.
And like I said, it's not just a Republican thing, it's also a Democratic thing. Both political parties are guilty of this. Both political parties know the importance of getting a Black vote. We've seen time and time again Black people literally saving the democracy in this country, or the remnants of democracy we have. We've seen how powerful the Black vote is time after time after time again. So of course, both political parties are going to do what they can to coerce Black people to vote. So they're going to say Black Lives Matter. They're going to say Black Lives Matter. They're going to say the catchiest phrase. They're going to speak a little slang. I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but they're going to speak a little slang when at a Black focused event. They're going to speak some slang. They're going to try their best to connect to us, to feel that like we're not, to feel that they're not, rather blah. But they're trying to say is that we're not outsiders in a way. Like they're not outsiders. Like we're all trying to do the same thing. You're just like me. Let's get myself up the political ladder so I can be your president, vice president, so on and so forth, or mayor, so on and so forth, and then just do nothing. We've seen that. We've seen this. This happens all the time. They make empty promises. Many politicians make empty promises. Many of them do. I'm not saying that there isn't a politician that doesn't make an empty promise. I know there are politicians that back up what they say, but especially on the national stage, and especially with Black votes, it's so easy to just take a hashtag Black Lives Matter, putting on your campaign, and then make it look like you are with the Black community, that you are truly with the Black community. Where it's basically just like I said, like I've said previously, it's just like being able to tell what's legitimate and what's a facade. Even if it's a Black politician, you shouldn't just let the fact that it's a Black politician you shouldn't let the fact that it's a Black politician be the reason why you should go out, but you should support this person. They're a Black politician. Of course they're gonna want to help out Black community, right? If we go back to history, we know that House Negroes were a thing. House Negroes were those of us. Those were the sympathizers. Those were the people who, for example, turned in Nat Turner, lead to Nat Turner's death. Those are the people. Those are the FBI informants, as we'll see in the newest movie coming out next month, Judas and the Black Messiah. Although they are Black, that doesn't mean they have the best intentions in mind. We've seen this over and over again on any side of the aisle. We've seen Black conservatives just completely dismiss the legitimacy of Black movements and just criticize present day and past leaders. We have we have seen Black liberals, Black people who you think would be with part of the Black Lives Matter movement. Like we've seen Black people like exclude Black LGBTQ plus issues, and we've seen them exclude the importance of having Black women address their own unique situations as well. And you know politicians are going to be like this. And sadly, that really is how it is. Politicians are in it for themselves. They want that spot. So whatever way, whatever hashtag, whatever trendy dance, whatever slang they can utilize to make a connection with Black people, they're going to do that. They're going to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we've seen all that, and it's just crazy how we can't seem to get any like tangible change whenever we, make awareness and do all these things to try and get change, but it never seems to happen. What would oh, go ahead.
Oh, because I feel like we could even have a discussion about that specifically, because like after the George Floyd murder, people like the Black Lives Matter movement got really big, and people posted things, and people hashtagged, and people went to rallies, and signed things like to what's the website?
Petition.
Change.org. Change.org would have all that. But then like a month later, like everyone who it seems like
they post the black square and it's like, oh, this back, like I did this, it's back to usual old things, like like that. Is that kind of where you're getting at?
Yeah.
Too?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. I mean, Miranda and I were kind of talking about this earlier, but we were talking about how like if we really want to see any change, we really need to just like uproot the entire system. But it's like it was really hard for us to like wrap our minds around that, because you basically have to like stop like the entire economy and like redo everything, because everything's so connected and to like how white supremacy and like all that sort of thing, and it's just all interwoven into like the system and like politics and the economic and social conditions. And do you think there can be any significant change without like any major policy changes, or do you think policy changes are a huge part of making sure that change sticks?
I think both policy based and non-policy based like solutions can be utilized in a sense. Policy wise, like of course you can utilize policy to invoke like literal change. Like for example, I know the Crown Act has been a big thing. We've been a lot of people have been talking about lately. But for those who don't know, the Crown Act is basically proposing that you can't discriminate people based off of their hair. So, for example, there are many states where I can be fired because of my hair. I have locks. I don't have a short hairstyle, like a straightened hairstyle or European-esque hairstyle. So that can get me fired, and that shouldn't be the case. So yeah, in that sense, yeah, policy can definitely be a factor of legitimate change. But then other ways too, there are other ways besides policy that utilize the change. For example, like education. It's how you educate people. It's how you educate people about these movements. How you educate people about sadly the atrocities that this country has done to us. And I know a lot of people want to keep the idea that America is just this beautiful country, it's just this beautiful, perfect country. Well, it's not. It's not, especially when there's a large majority of your population being marginalized in multiple ways. So it's not. So in that way, no. It's not a perfect country. And with the non-policy solutions and whatnot, that's where like organizations like BCA, like the organization I'm creating, comes in. So we can have more conversations on this. Is having these conversations. Is creating these Black businesses that help out all of our Black entrepreneurs and help push forward these ideas, because some of these successful Black businesses can also help Black movements. They can also help fund Black movements. These could be the funding spaces for Black movements when big companies might be like, yeah, it's a little bit too controversial for us. So these businesses can also help us out as well. So not just with policy, being able to pass things up to the state, the local, state, and national levels, but it's also starting doing the grassroots work as well. It's educating yourself on the words of a Malcolm X, of the Black Panther Party, of a Dr. King, and not the Dr. King we learned in school, in public school, but the Dr. King from his own words. It's from creating these Black-owned businesses. It's from learning about these Black movements, these grassroots Black movements and what they stand for, and being able to support them. So yeah, there are multiple policy-wise ways that we can help enact real change, and there are many non-policy-based ways that we can get the change that we want. So it's not just like we can only do one way or another. We can utilize both ways to help accomplish a common goal.
Got it.
You mentioned. Oh, sorry. Did you have a question, Shivani?
Go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned like education and Malcolm X and MLK, and me and my friend the other day had a discussion about how we think education and textbooks and the media and stuff kind of whitewashes the movement. And I wanted to see if you had any opinions on that.
You said it. You said it yourself. It whitewashes the movement in multiple ways. It whitewashes Black figures in multiple ways. MLK was way more radical than we learned of Kim. We learned in history class that MLK, well, he was from the South. He had a dream, and then they passed the Civil Rights Bill, and then racism was all over from there. That's definitely wasn't the case. MLK, for one, greatly opposed the war. He greatly opposed the war in Vietnam. He was definitely radical of his viewpoints, especially when it comes to the idea of just poverty-based oppression, especially for Black people. When before MLK died in Memphis, he was supposed to help create. I think it was like a poor man's movement or something to just that. I might have said the wrong name, but definitely you can definitely do some research on that too. How before he died, he was supposed to help out this movement for poor people as well. MLK was way more radical than we think of him as. And the same can be said with being the whitewashing of Malcolm X. Malcolm X created his autobiography because he knew that if he didn't get his own words on paper, if he didn't get his own words in book form, he already knew. He even says in the book that he knows that the country's going to screw his story over.
Yeah.
To make him as like the bad guy, to MLK's supposed good guy. Well, Malcolm X. Well, that being because Malcolm X was very critical. He was very critical, and to some people, he was very harsh on his critiques of white supremacy. But it was a much needed critique at the time, and it's still a much needed critique to this very day. We can see this with the Black Panthers as well, with the Black Panthers being like Malcolm X. They're bad guys. They hated white people and this and that. The Black Panthers didn't hate white people. They hated white supremacy. I guess and I can say that again as many times as I want to. The Black Panther Party didn't hate white people. They had white people help them out. They had radical white people help them out. One of the key white organizations that were allies to the Black Panther Party were the Students for a Democratic Society. I want to say that's the name of it. I want to say that's the name of the organization. But yeah, they didn't hate white people. They didn't hate white people. They hated the oppressive system that many white people have created. They weren't just people toting guns and open carry protests. They created free breakfast, free education. They were the first like nationally recognized organization that actually tackled sickle cell anemia. They actually took sickle cell anemia seriously before the federal government even saw it as a serious threat. And the sickle cell anemia was such an important issue, was such an important thing to actually focus on because, well, it affected Black people at such a high rate. So the Black Panthers weren't just people who went open carry protests. They weren't just the attention getters. They didn't just settle on the attention getter. They added the body paragraphs that would lead to a greater conclusion. Those free breakfast programs weren't just there for show. Those were legitimate things to help feed the youth at the time, because they knew that the youth weren't going to be able to do well in school if they were going there on an empty stomach. So they make sure to have these free breakfast programs, to have these education programs, to have these programs to where they can focus on sickle cell anemia and help out the community as much as possible. They knew they wanted to stay in the Black communities in Oakland, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, New York, Seattle, and all the other chapters as well, because they wanted to be the legitimate force stuff. They wanted to be that legitimate organization that actually helped out Black people, which they were. And even decades later, where we try to where our history books try to whitewash them and dismiss them as just this anti-white organization. We are seeing newspapers, articles, books, TED Talks about the truth of these movements. And it's important that we tell the truth about these important people, about these important organizations, and about these important movements. When decades pass after we have this, podcast, after we have this podcast, decades after this podcast airs, there are going to be people who are going to whitewash the Black Lives Matter movement. They're probably going to see it as just an organization or just a hashtag. They're going to see it as a hashtag and not an organization, because they don't want to have to think of the fact that the organization was taking these important steps years after we have this. They're gonna whitewash anything. They're gonna whitewash anything and everything Black and critical to helping out Black people to make it palatable to the majority audience, i.e., white people, especially white youth, to indoctrinate them on these whitewashed ideas early so that they don't question anything in the future.
Do you think there's a little bit of like trying to avoid white guilt there, or do you think it's to hold power, or both?
I think it's both, and I don't even think it's avoiding white guilt. They have white guilt. If they're having white guilt while doing that. They're feeling white guilt while doing that. That's why they want to whitewash it, so that they don't have to address it. But they are feeling it so that they don't have to address it. They don't have to deal with it at larger doses. And in that sense, that's making sure that they stay in power. That's making sure that they stay in power. The systems that they have, so that the systems that they have created are put in place, and stay in place. That they aren't being taken down. I'm seeing that recently that Joe Biden. I think it's been reported that Joe Biden is I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Is separating his ties with private prisons. I want to hear was a thing he did, and that's creating some stirs as well, because the prison industrial complex itself having to arrest and having to jail just thousands upon thousands of Black men and women, and having these private prisons go by their own way. They do their own things. They do whatever the heck they want to do with these people. So that's basically putting them back, telling them to do work, literally enslaving them in modern times. So Joe Biden separating himself from those private prisons is a big step, and I commend him for that. He might have been my favorite candidate to run for office, but surely that move was something big, something that I really did admire. But going back to what you said, yes, they're trying to avoid white guilt, but they had to have felt that white guilt in order to insinuate the actions to act like it doesn't exist. It's like when you're a kid and you break something, and your parents are gonna get mad. So you try and let's just say I broke a toothpick, right? Let's just say I just happened to break this toothpick. I happen to broke it. I know I'm gonna get trouble because I broke it, so I'm going to act like it isn't broken and just put it together enough and position it in a way that it doesn't look broken. Or if someone says did you break my toothpick? I'd be no, I'm holding it right here. Like I'm holding it right here, but you're holding that spot where it's broken. That's what they're doing with this. That's what they're doing with this. They broke the product. They broke, like they said, they broke the toothpick, and they're trying to act like that everything's all said and done. They're trying to repair it. They want to repair it, but they're not actually repairing it. They're just hiding the damn shit they've done. And that's what they're doing by whitewashing Black history and Black movements and the ideals and the objectives of leaders of these Black movements, like a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or a Malcolm X or the Black Panther Party. They're doing a lot of damage by just not telling the full truth, like breaking the toothpick, but instead of actually mending it by actually telling the truth, they're just trying to hide it. They're trying to hide it. So instead of actually like trying to put the toothpick back together, they're just holding it. They're just holding the toothpick because once I let go of the toothpick, it breaks. They don't want to break it again, expose what they've done to the entire world. So they're going to try and hold that toothpick together as much as they can, so that it looks like it's not damaged, or that it looks like, in our sense, when we're learning about them in history, that it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But in reality, they're trying to make it into their own image, and that's just like I'm trying to do with the toothpick. I'm trying to make it look like as if the image of it's not broken, in the same way that they're trying to make it look like those are the actual people. That image of Dr. King with a dream is who Dr. King was.
That metaphor, holy, oh my look, comm majors. Okay. Wow. No wonder you were so good at speech. Oh my gosh. Okay.
You were like the greatest performer I've ever seen, by the way. And I think I've told you this before, but you just blow my mind every time you talk. And I'm definitely gonna play this episode like over and over again after this is done. But like this has been great.
Even with all the stutters in the but
so
no,
good.
it wasn't that bad. Like I understood every word you said, and then like cleared things up for me, like just like that. Like dang, wow. Oh my goodness.
Me and Shivani didn't make sense. You actually did. So
yeah, honestly. We are out of time, as you might have heard my alarm go off. I'm so sorry. But this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, I honestly, thank you. Like, thank you.
That was such a good episode. I'm so excited for people to hear that. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm glad that I can share my perspective, my best perspective possible about these issues and my opinions on these issues, and being able to broadcast the Black Communication Association as much as I can. And this is something that once it's official, is going to be big. We are, like I said, it's literally maybe less than a week, if not a week away from being official. So I'm really excited to get the ball rolling, and to have these conversations and these discussions, these debates, and just create that group, create a safe space to have these places, to have these critical ideas and thoughts and discussions. I'm really excited for this to get started. And again, thank you very much just for inviting me. This means a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say to our listeners before we close up?
Just to actually take a critical action into helping us out. You should, like I said, just read, be willing to discuss, join organizations, hear us out. Don't suppress our voices while trying to help us out at the same time. That's only detrimental to us. Don't try and take over our movements. And yeah, just listen to us. Don't try and hear us out so that you can then insert your opinion afterwards. Actually legitimately listen to us. Be critical of the companies you buy from, especially if they have Black Lives Matter on their product. If you know that they're not going to help us out, then don't support them. Be critical of politicians. Make sure that what they say they mean. If they're saying Black Lives Matter, they legitimately push the idea that, well, Black Lives Matter, and I'm going to create the tangible solution so that the world knows. So it's just be critical of everything. Just be critical.
Love it. And yeah, if you need any help like advertising the organization once you launch it, we would be happy to do that. But yeah.
Do you guys have an Instagram? Because we could tag you in when we post the podcast.
We will be creating one real soon, and then I can send you, and then I can send you I can send you the account name,
cool.
so you can add us on.
Cool.
All right. So to our listeners, thank you for listening. And if you guys have any suggestions, comments, or feedback, you can email us at farfromnormalpodcast2020@gmail.com. We have an Instagram at farfromnormalpodcast. There's also a Google form on our Instagram where you can leave questions, comments, and concerns, and it's all anonymous. And it's great. So you guys should follow us. Thank you again, Doniven. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
So good.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you all. We love you guys.
Bye.
No problem. Take care.